Could Microsoft and Nintendo be bridging some kind of connection?
Is the Switch going to say hello to Halo?
Hot take.
Halo coming to the Switch? I don't know. We almost got a port of Halo to the DS. That didn't happen.
I remember that.
It's true. All this talk about Microsoft and the Switch, this is because there was some information that kind of leaked out about a talk that's going to be happening at GDC next month. It's a talk by Microsoft entitled Xbox Live, Growing and Engaging Your Community Across iOS, Android, Switch, Xbox, and PC. So the description of this talk is get a first look at the SDK to enable game developers to connect players between all of those devices and all of those platforms. Shane, sounds like platforms missing.
Yeah.
Who's missing?
Tiger Electronics.
No,
I think
Tiger
it
Electronics.
might be Sony. Sony seems to be the one missing there.
It's just about everything else Microsoft wants to be, kind of shaking hands with, but Sony's out.
I gotta say, this makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
For those of you that may not remember the recent history of video games on computers and stuff like that, when Windows was introduced, and DOS was introduced actually from Windows, from Microsoft, it became a bigger platform where a whole bunch of people started developing games for DOS and for Windows. With the introduction of DirectX and everything, Microsoft just basically really took it over. There were a lot of other PC platforms. There was Amiga, there was Mac, there still is Mac, there was OpenBSD, there's a whole bunch of other things. OpenBSD, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on the name on that one. There were a bunch of things, but Microsoft really did reign supreme. And one of the biggest focuses on Microsoft is operating system development. And they're really good at a lot of items. And one thing they're very good at is their online performance. I would have to say that the best online system for any of the video game consoles that exist on the market right now is still Microsoft, hands down. They figured it out on the 360. They figured it out on the original Xbox, and they've been doing it better than anyone else. If Sega was still in the mix, because they really started things out with the Dreamcast, maybe things would have evolved differently. Maybe we'd be seeing a much bigger, more interesting online SegaNet, but that didn't happen. What we do have is Microsoft doing what they do best. And Sony, they're doing it. Kind of.
So here's the thing. Okay,
Yeah.
you're talking about how great the service is
Yes.
that Microsoft offers, and I agree with that. The problem is that Sony is still kicking butt,
Yes.
hand over fist. Just recently, the sales digitally for Sony were revealed, and they were insane. It was over $12.5 billion were made just within the digital storefront. So that's like digital software, add-ons, and stuff like that. It far surpasses the competitors, right?
Oh, yeah,
so,
it's crazy.
So yeah, it outdoes Microsoft's gaming division and Nintendo as a whole, not just gaming or software in particular, like everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of this, to kind of wrap up my idea, I think part of what Microsoft is trying to do is like, look, we have a great service, but no one's really trying it or playing it. So this is our way of getting out there and having other people play, and then maybe, more people will jump on board.
And that's what I think it is. Now, when I was saying that Sony wasn't as good as Microsoft, I mean, like, they're selling a lot more, right? It's not that they're not.
Right.
The problem I have is that certain things that Microsoft does, they do incredibly well, where when it comes to PlayStation, it's not that it's bad, it's just not as good. Like, it took them, I don't know, a decade to figure out how to change your name.
Longer than a decade.
Like, it took a really long time. Just change your name. And even now, they say, you can change it, but it'll probably break your game. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that then. Microsoft figured this stuff out, okay? But the one company that has consistently been terrible with online in such amazingly scary ways is Nintendo. Nintendo is the worst company I've ever seen try to handle online anything ever in the history of time beginning. It's amazing.
They always seem to be like a couple steps behind, right?
Couple steps?
Well, yeah.
We're talking years behind.
Just
it's insane.
Think about the friend code debacle, even just the Nintendo Online, the service as it is now.
Yeah.
It's like a desert,
Yeah,
per
it
se.
really is.
And we may have, they did say that a gaming enthusiast service could be coming in the future. I don't know if this has anything to do with this news. I kind of hope it doesn't, because I want Nintendo to be releasing something that is something I didn't know I needed in my life.
I'm all for that.
Check this out. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? No,
Yeah.
no. I agree. I'm all for Nintendo doing something and doing it better. Miiverse was really fun. It was different. It was unique. Playing certain games on the Wii U, if for many of you out there that don't know what a Wii U is, it's the system Nintendo made before the Switch and after the Wii. You know, the one you didn't buy. So that system had this really cool thing where you would play certain games and then like drawings would appear that other people had played, would draw, give you little hints and stuff. It was a really cool system. And they botched it. And then they shut it down for no reason, just because they could. Was there a reason? Because I don't know what the reason is.
Because they were coming out with a Switch eventually.
I mean, guess they couldn't use it on the Switch. I mean, like, it's insane.
We've spoken about this before, where there's been walls in their services.
Walls in their services. Freaking country miles of... It's insane. Every time they make a new system, there has to be a new online service, a new feature set, and they toss everything out that they learned from the last one.
Right.
It's like, you know what it is? This is the best way to explain Nintendo as it stands right now. Nintendo made a car. Then they made another car, then they made another car. Most companies that would have made 3 cars would have been like, let's use the same doors, maybe the same seatbelts, maybe the same engines. Nintendo's like, everything's new. New. It's all different. It's all new. Even if you liked one feature from the old thing, it never got pulled over. It's insane.
So it's been problematic. And as much as I love the punch Nintendo in the gut, as far as their online thing is concerned, what I want to talk about is like Microsoft dabbling with Nintendo.
Yes,
could very much be beneficial for the company.
Yes,
like you said, the Microsoft approach to online has been pretty successful, even if not as many people are within that ecosystem.
It works. It just works.
So maybe this is them combining efforts with Nintendo, playing nice, and maybe showing them a thing or two, which could work out. Connectedness as a whole, when I look at what this talk entails, connectedness as a whole is good.
Yeah.
Right? This means that we could have a larger pool of players to kind of pull from across the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PC, cell phones. If you want to play a game, there's going to be people in that lobby, right? So that creates more of a community there. This could be absolutely fantastic.
One of the problems I have right now with playing Switch games is that when I want to play a Switch game, okay, first off, there's people watching right now. They're like, the Switch Online isn't so bad. You're a liar, my good friend. You are not being honest to me, to Adam, or yourself. And that's fine. And you're going to write in the comments anyway. You're going to talk about how great it is. You need a cell phone app with an additional freaking headset just to talk to someone. Who thought? Who? Look, I'm not saying Microsoft's going to fix that. But what they can do is introduce things like, well, Nintendo, this is called group lobby chat. From this place, groups of people can come together and talk about things and play games together.
It does make me wonder if Microsoft would be able to circumvent a lot of the problematic nature that is within what Nintendo has done with the Switch.
Sure, it could be
talking and what else.
I'm not going to knock it out of the and just say it's never like they're never going to be able to fix that stuff themselves. It's just they've had a very long time with multiple consoles. Nintendo is good at making hardware. Is probably the best company around that makes video games, and that's about it. When it comes to online, they constantly fall on their faces, and in some cases they fall on their faces, break through the ground, and hurtle towards the core of the earth at such a fast pace. It's amazing how they get things wrong in ways you just can't think they could.
Yeah, I know the Surface is problematic, but I'm hoping that, again, these are dev tools that are going out to people, to developers, so that they can kind of open things up to, across the board, from the Switch, the Xbox, and then beyond. I'm hoping what happens with this, if not helping the Nintendo online infrastructure, like maybe making it a little bit better, I hope this makes Sony look at the other boys, the guys that are playing together, and say, like, if it's a major success, it'll have Sony saying, oh, like, we want to jump on board. And then maybe we can have an entire sort of, let's say, a place-based ecosystem that works amongst all three of the big heads.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want the communal gaming experience, and I'm really hoping that, what happens here is...
That's what I hope happens. I mean, that's just the thing. What we see with a lot of the companies... I mean, look, if you have an Xbox, you've got a PlayStation 4, you got a Switch, and you have a friend that has a competing system... If you get two games, it kind of sucks that you can't play with each other.
Exactly.
There are a lot of examples now that we can play together, and that's really good. But there are very good reasons to why that doesn't happen across every other system, whether it be an unfair advantage for the way the game is designed.
Yeah.
Look, if you have one system that has a mouse and a keyboard and you're playing with a controller, sorry, bro, you're going down. Like a mouse and a keyboard, every single time you're going to get way more precision and accuracy with a mouse than you will with a joystick.
I like the way that I look at it. I would rather have the choice to have inferior controls than to have it completely walled off. Like, no, you're playing with a controller. You can't play with a person with a mouse and a keyboard. I want that option.
Sure.
I don't want someone to tell me that. Maybe some people are really good with a controller.
Yeah.
You know, and then maybe the way that this service works, like, people do have options. Like, you can get a Bluetooth controller for your cell phone. I mean, you can get a keyboard and a mouse for your cell phone.
Sure.
It's weird, but you know, the options are there, and I do want, like, an openness space, and I hope that this leads very much to that.
Now, the thing is, thinking about changing the Switch's online like infrastructure now, a couple years after it's been released, this sounds crazy. Like, if you were to change systems now, Mario Kart is still going to run off Nintendo servers. I would imagine how this would work is it would be an implementation for third-party games and not games that Nintendo is making on in-house. That's the way I kind of see this working. Because if Nintendo's like, okay, release a game on our platform and just use the Xbox API to get all these games to work for online support, that would make more sense to me than going, okay, here's Smash Brothers on Xbox servers. Like, that's something I just can't see it happening. I don't think that would be something that many companies would, or that Nintendo would be comfortable with doing.
No. Well, they're so protective of their first party materials. What I really hope comes from this is maybe if Nintendo and Microsoft do want to compete with Sony, who is very like ahead at this point, I hope that maybe they can see these services, Microsoft linking to Nintendo, as possibly a way of filling in gaps in both of their sort of repertoire. So people can say, like, okay, so the Xbox and the Switch are talking to each other now. Maybe save data can go across. We know they're talking about, like, trophy and friends lists and stuff like that. But maybe people can look at this and say, well, we used to be a one-console household, right? I just wanted a Switch or I just wanted an Xbox One. But now we can get the best of both worlds, right? Now I can get a Switch. I can play those Nintendo games that are, you know, only on the Switch. I can have the portability of the Switch. But also, if I want a third-party support, you know, I have my Microsoft console as well. And if there's some games that are similar or that can talk to each other on those systems, yeah, man, it's all the better. Hey, I want to play, like, huge AAA games with massive textures and, you know, the highest end console games. I get an Xbox, you get a Switch, and they both kind of take care of each other.
But there is one problem I have with this.
What's that?
It's the only problem I have. Because it didn't start at the beginning of things, we're already playing for an online service from Nintendo. I've already purchased games with Nintendo. Having newer third-party games support on that way. Now, for me, I already own a Switch and I own an Xbox, so having two different services together, not a big deal. But if somebody owns a Switch, and then they buy a game that requires you to get Xbox Live Gold and like an additional service.
So far, they haven't used the word gold, but it's a possibility, though. That's one thing I very much wanted to talk about. Well, if you want to elaborate,
so for people that don't know, if you own an Xbox One, 360, or whatever, if you want to play those games online, you actually need the Gold account. The Gold account allows you to play those games online. Right. If you have the just the free one allows you to do certain things. It's
very limited. You can't play free to play games using the you know, the blank whatever, the live service, not Gold service.
It's just called Xbox Live. Yeah, it's just your basic. I mean, if that happens on the Switch and people have to pay an additional cost to play their games online, I think that would damage the Switch more than it would help it. So in my mind, the only way that this would work is if it's rolled into the already existing cost of Nintendo's online service. Because at this point, I'm paying Nintendo to be online for what?
Right.
I don't know yet. We might find out.
This service could make that, could give more reason to it, right? Do you ever think that there could be some sort of revenue connected back to Microsoft?
Oh, of course.
From this? So that
if you're going to be using their services and servers, you have to give them some cut of that.
Right.
But like at this point right now, with what Nintendo's doing, I mean, you're paying per month to play a handful of games online. There's some other ones that, you know, it's all up in the air. But one issue I do have with that service is that With Gold, you get a lot of things like free games, like advanced cuts of costs off of existing products.
Right.
There's things. It's not just the one thing. I'm not saying I like it. I would have loved it for all to be free. But if you're going to pay, they should be giving you something that has a lot more value. What Nintendo is giving you now is NES games.
Possibly SNES games in the future, but we don't know.
Yeah. With Xbox right now, I've got a whole bunch of games that are just on my collection. Every month I keep getting new games and like bigger experiences, games that I've actually, more often than not, I have gone each month onto Xbox Gold or even PlayStation Plus, and I just see a game that I'm like, wow, I wanted to play that, now it's free this month, and now it's in my collection. And it's like, that's really cool, and I like that ability. But with the Switch right now, it's, oh yeah, I remember Dr. Mario. Cool.
Dr. Mario is coming to the phone now anyway.
Yeah,
so,
good. That's we need that too.
You kind of sort of touched on this, but one thing that kind of worried me about hearing about this is like, oh, it's cool that Microsoft is reaching out and trying to make a sort of connected experience. But if it's Microsoft heading this experience, is there a chance that they could like kind of try to sway people more towards their consoles via limitations or things like that?
I firmly believe that if you have a Nintendo platform, if you have their console, it's because you're looking to play their games. There is nothing Microsoft can say to you that is going to sway you over to their platform that doesn't include the word Link, Mario. It doesn't include Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have any of those franchises, right? So you can offer all the creature comforts of a really good service, but unless you have the games to back it, which is Microsoft's problem right now, where they have a whole bunch of games from a whole bunch of different manufacturers, a whole bunch of indie games, but when it comes down to the bare bones, they don't really have a lot of exclusives, and the stuff they do have isn't really attracting gamers in a mass way. That's it.
So one more sort of negative that I was kind of pondering, and I want your perspective on this, is like, okay, let's say these developers get this dev tool, which allows them to have cross compatibility, let's say amongst everything, PlayStation included. If you're dealing with so many different types of hardware, could that possibly incentivize developers to not, maybe not build the prettiest game or the most technically savvy game? Maybe they're like, okay, this is the bar for everything. So we got tablets, we got phones, we got home consoles, and graphics should look like this. The gameplay should be like this. Do you think that's something that would be a problem? Do you see that?
Do you think, so are you trying to say that developers would start, making worse games on the Switch?
Well, no. Just overall, instead of, let's say your Xbox One X experience, maybe a developer solely developing for the Xbox One X would send in all the 4K textures, all of the, advanced lighting and ambient sort of dust particles and things, and then they'd have to draw back for other systems, so why not just have the more simplified version and just leave it at that?
Well, right now, there's developers that are watching right now. You can answer this better than me, but for what I want to understand, if you're making a video game that is aimed at multi-platform use, you're likely aiming as PlayStation 4 as your base, right? Because that's the most consumers out there own a PlayStation 4. If you're going to be making something on the Switch, you know you're going to have to break the game down a little bit to go on the Switch. But there's also this cost measure, too. A simple game that has very simple assets can be dynamically scaled across multiple platforms, and it makes a lot more sense to make games like that than to make a really big experience that you're going to struggle to put on a Switch or put on a lesser system. I mean, the idea of having a game that performs worse on other systems doesn't really even begin with the Switch. They were already having that happen with the PS4 and the base Xbox One, because the Xbox One, though powerful, was diverting some of that power into its multimedia experience. When they introduced the X kind of gave it all that extra stuff that you couldn't get before, plus more. So I think the way we see stuff evolving, that game developers are already looking at multi-tiered experiences across multiple platforms. They're looking at engines and development tools that already give them that ability. Like Unreal. Unreal is a very scalable platform that can work on so many other things. So I personally don't believe this is going to affect them too much. If anything, it gives developers an easier way to work with things. Because let's just say you've got an online experience on the Xbox One or on Microsoft's Xbox platform, and that exact same experience is on the Switch. Developers might have it a lot easier because they're like, okay, it's not two closed walled gardens now. It's just one world, and we can just work with it that way. That might be a better solution.
Yeah.
For instance, if they really want the home abilities with like all the Xbox One X power and the Switch, maybe developers like, hey, just make it on these two platforms and maybe not the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, so they can choose. Whatever.
Yeah, but honestly, I think there's way more developers out there that care about the PlayStation compared to everything else.
And when I think about these development tools going out to developers, like the picture in my mind is more of the independent scene taking advantage of this, and possibly those experiences worrying less about having the greatest textures of all time and more about just having like fun sort of experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I really want to see it sounds like this could be a thing where Nintendo and Microsoft could be sort of teaming up in a sense to maybe send a message to Sony or to maybe get the sales on their digital storefronts a little bit higher as well.
Yeah, you never know. Look, at the end of the day, this is only a good thing if it happens.
Yes.
There might be some negatives that would affect the overall experience for some gamers, but as it stands right now, I firmly believe that Nintendo is just not in a position to really make this better themselves.
This could be good for Nintendo.
Yeah, if Nintendo, and I think Nintendo could do it if they really tried. I just don't think they have I don't want to say the knowledge. Nintendo isn't a bad company. They know what they're trying to do. It's just sometimes when they try to do something, they do it completely wrong. And I think that if they just let someone else do it, it might be better. Or hey, purchase a company that's really good at online experiences, bring them in-house, and have them work on that stuff. But I simply don't believe that Nintendo's internal structure is set up for online anymore.
Their online infrastructure is a problem. They know how to make games, though.
That's it.
And that's good.
That's all they need to do,
That's very
right?
good.
That's it. So, folks, what do you think? Are you excited about a potential Xbox and Nintendo merger onto online platforms? Or do you think that Microsoft should stay out of my Nintendo? Let me know what you think.